Picture a daily commuter car that requires no radiator, uses no spark plugs, and never needs an oil change. Instead of the familiar rumble of pistons, it produces the high-pitched, vacuum-like whine of a jet spooling up on a runway. You could pull up to a pump and fill the tank with diesel. If you ran out, you could pour in tequila, peanut oil, or even Chanel No. 5 perfume, and it would still drive perfectly. This was the reality of the 1963 Chrysler Turbine. It was a functional masterpiece. Yet after spending millions to engineer it, Chrysler deliberately rounded up almost the entire fleet and fed them into an industrial scrap crusher. To understand why a major automaker would destroy its own engineering triumph, we have to look inside the engine bay. A typical V8 engine of the 1960s contained approximately 300 moving parts. By eliminating the camshafts, connecting rods, and crankshafts, Chrysler engineers reduced the turbine to a mere 60 components. This chart tracks the engine's incredible rotational velocity. Even at a complete standstill, the idle speed hovered around 22,000 RPM. Because the two internal turbines were connected only by a flow of hot gas, the engine acted as its own torque converter, delivering a massive 425 pound-feet of torque the absolute instant you pressed the pedal. That continuous flame inside the combustor gave the A831 its omnivorous appetite. As long as a liquid was flammable and could flow through a pipe, the turbine burned it completely, without requiring a single mechanical adjustment to the air-to-fuel ratio. Chrysler engineers had discarded the reciprocating piston entirely, opting to drop a miniature aerospace engine straight onto the American highway. In 1963, rather than testing these multi-million-dollar prototypes in secret, Chrysler launched a massive public trial. They distributed 50 hand-built vehicles to 203 ordinary American citizens, letting them test the cars in their own neighborhoods. These drivers received a striking machine. The bodies were handcrafted in Italy by the Carrozzeria Ghia design studio, finished in a signature metallic root beer color, famously known as turbine bronze. Over the next 27 months, these everyday commuters cumulatively logged over 1.1 million test miles across the country, and they took full advantage of the engine's multi-fuel capability, filling the tanks with everything from standard diesel and kerosene to home heating oil and soybean oil. The versatility of the A831 was proven at the highest levels. Mexican President Adolfo López Mateos personally poured tequila into the tank of a test car, turned the key, and successfully drove it away. The turbine car quickly became a global cultural icon, drawing massive, curious crowds at major international exhibitions, including the 1964 New York World's Fair. Chrysler had accomplished exactly what they set out to do. The 1.1 million-mile trial proved that jet-powered commuter vehicles were mechanically viable for the general public. However, a gas turbine is governed by specific thermodynamic laws. They operate with high efficiency at constant, elevated speeds, the exact opposite of stop-and-go city traffic. This dual bar chart compares the fuel consumption of both engines at idle. While a piston engine barely sips gas at a red light, the Chrysler turbine had to spin at 20,000 RPM just to keep its continuous flame alive. This structural reality dragged average fuel economy down to a bleak 11.5 miles per gallon. Compounding the poor mileage was a harsh infrastructure irony. In the 1960s, the cheapest and most abundant fuel on the market was leaded gasoline. While the turbine could burn it, the 1700-degree ambient heat inside the combustor caused the tetraethyl lead additives to precipitate out of the liquid, baking them into solid, corrosive metallic deposits. These hardened lead deposits quickly coated the delicate fan blades. At 60,000 RPM, even microscopic would violently throw the turbine shaft out of alignment, destroying the engine. Because drivers were strictly warned to avoid standard pump gas, daily ownership became deeply inconvenient. Test families were forced to avoid standard filling stations and hunt down diesel fuel or kerosene to keep the cars running. The A831 worked brilliantly in isolation, but it was forced to operate in a national fueling infrastructure built explicitly for piston engines. As Chrysler worked to refine the fuel economy, they encountered an insurmountable scientific hurdle inside the exhaust pipe: nitrogen oxides. Because the A831 burned fuel continuously at an extreme 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, It created the absolute perfect thermal environment for atmospheric nitrogen and oxygen to bond together. This generated extraordinarily high levels of NOx. In 1970, the newly formed Environmental Protection Agency, empowered by the Clean Air Act, established strict statutory limits on vehicle emissions. Suddenly, the turbine's high NOx output was illegal. Redesigning the engine to meet these limits required massive investment, highlighting the crippling economics of mass production. Because the internal components had to withstand inferno-like temperatures, they required complex investment casting using aerospace-grade exotic metals. This drove the manufacturing cost of a single engine to a staggering $10,000. Add to that the heavy import tariffs levied on the Italian-built carrozzeria Ghia bodies, and the financial math collapsed completely. Hemmed in by strict new environmental mandates and astronomical production costs, an engineering marvel had quickly degraded into an untenable corporate liability. To avoid paying crushing import taxes on the test fleet, and to ensure this highly proprietary technology stayed out of the hands of competitors, Chrysler made a ruthless corporate decision. As the public trial ended, the company recalled the vehicles and systematically fed 46 of the 55 priceless, hand-built cars into an industrial scrap crusher. A dedicated team of engineers kept the turbine R&D alive for a few more years, but the final blow arrived in 1979. To save Chrysler from total bankruptcy, the federal government provided a massive loan guarantee, with the strict stipulation that all high-risk turbine research be abandoned immediately. Today, only 9 of these jet-age vehicles survived the crusher. They are safely tucked away in automotive museums and a few elite private collections. The Chrysler Turbine Car proves that human innovation is rarely held back by a lack of imagination. It is far more often defeated by harsh economics, infrastructure hurdles, and bad timing. What unusual fuel would you have poured into the tank of the turbine car? Let us know in the comments below, and subscribe to Archive World for more lost history.